Or is this one? All right, awesome, there we go.
There you go.
Thank you everyone for coming out and showing your support, not only for trans rights and Bill C279, but for the LGBT community and for human rights in general. By you being here today, you're making a difference. You're helping let people know that human rights are important, even in the 21st century. Today's society is one that permits certain members to become socially invisible. Our plights, problems, and successes go unnoticed by the population at large. Despite recent legislative, political, and social victories, members of the LGBT community, specifically trans people, have gained little from the small amount of exposure they have had. I hope to inform each and every one of you just a little bit more about the potential passage of C279 and what that will mean for trans women, trans men, and those who question. The passage of this bill is paramount. The second issue I wish to discuss today is a recent policy change within the Institution of Ontario. More must be done to help accommodate trans people and the LGBT community and foster a positive response. And that brings me to my third objective, which is to announce a future event here at the DIY Collective and to allow us all to stay connected. You probably know of C279, at least in name, if you're standing with me here today. The bill was tabled by NDP MP Randall Garrison over a year ago and has existed in one form or another since 2007. It failed to pass first or second reading in 2007 and 2009, and it is now coming out of its third reading of committee and hopefully will pass by the end of the legislative year. Bill C279 aims to amend the Human Rights Code of Canada and the Criminal Code of Canada to include gender expression and gender identity. Why are these terms important and what do they mean, as they are often confused in the media for one or another? Gender expression is the external presentation that a person gives, whether that's male, female, or something in between, through the use of clothing, gestures, and voice. Gender identity is the psychological term for one's internal relation to their gender, and for trans people, this is specifically a problem, as our mental images of our sex do not match physical reality. Opponents of C279 have labeled this the bathroom bill, citing that transgendered people and those posing as transgendered people will harm children. This is blatant fear-mongering that I find unacceptable and ridiculous. The decision to live as your desired gender carries with it a lot of barriers and is a very long process. No one that I know of has ever undergone transition for societal benefit, and to say that someone would do so is preposterous. What are the real-world implications of C279? Unfortunately, that is an ambiguous area, because amending the Human Rights Code and Criminal Code needs to be challenged in the courts. The ultimate effect of C279 will be decided years from this rally, but if we do not pass the legislation, we cannot affect positive social change. Let me now focus on one area where I know C279 will be effective, although it will be effective in other areas, such as housing, employment, and hopefully day-to-day life. Trans people's mental and physical medical conditions are not taken into account when they enter the judicial system. Trans people are often frozen in protective custody. They are placed in protective custody and isolation, which has been described as dehumanizing. A trans person is no longer able to continue the transition process when they enter the judicial system. There are cases here in Ontario and across our great country where trans people are placed into prisons based along their biological sex. Of course, this is not an issue in Ontario now, as we have changed the ability to change your gender marker. Those who are mid-transition, who begin taking hormones, are able to still access that care, but they often do not have access to social services such as a counselor, and cannot and will not be eligible for government-funded sexual reassignment surgery. The second initiative that I want to speak to you here today is a change in Ontario that took place on October 5th, but unfortunately was not widely publicized in the media. And that is the ability for trans people who are pre-operative, post-operative, or questioning their gender to change the gender markers on their identifications. For many of us, what that means is although we've been living as our desired sex for a long time, We still have identifications that identify us by our given sex at birth. We can now simply fill out a 2-page form and have have our family doctor give us a letter of referral and send it to the government. In 8 weeks, it will be done. For many, this could be the final step in their transitions and the removal of a great mental barrier and stress. The third initiative that I want to talk to you about today is the event taking place on November 20th here at the DIY Collective. The event is in honor of TDOR, the Trans Day of Remembrance. It takes place every year on November 20th to remember those within the LGBT community we've lost to suicide, murder, and other causes. This event is open to all and is not specifically a trans-focused event. We hope to have a mental health professional come talk about suicide prevention and create an open forum for discussion. Thank you for taking the time to come to my rally. I look forward to seeing you on our march to City Hall in 20 minutes. We'll leave from the doors of the DIY Collective here at 67 Toronto Street, march down Toronto Street to Dunlop, march from Dunlop to Mulcaster, and we will convene under the flags. Thank you for your time.